Today, we're going to talk about one of the most incredible and honestly one of the most cautionary tales in all of tech history. We're talking about Yahoo. How does a company that was, for all intents and purposes, the internet end up becoming, well, a memory? Let's get into it. And, it's really hard to overstate this. We're talking about a time before you Googled anything, a time before social media was even a concept. For millions and millions of people, Yahoo was the front door to the entire digital world. And it wasn't just one thing, right? It was the whole shebang. It was your search engine. It was your email inbox. It was where you got your news. And behind the scenes, it was a monster in early digital advertising. They were an absolute titan. Okay, so let's rewind the clock. Let's start at the beginning, when Yahoo was rising up as the internet's first undisputed king. They were building an empire back when the digital world was basically the Wild West. Think about what they had going for them in the late 90s, early 2000s. The assets were just staggering. We're talking about colossal amounts of daily traffic, a brand name that was as recognizable as Coca-Cola, and a huge head start in every single important online service. I mean, they had it all. But here's the twist. Right here is where the cracks really start to show. The company's greatest strength, the fact that they were into everything, was about to become its biggest, most fatal flaw. It led to this deep crisis of identity. And this was the big question that, believe it or not, Yahoo's own leadership could never really answer. What was Yahoo? Were they making content like a media company? Were they building tools like a tech company? Or were they just the doorway, the portal? They could never pick a lane, and that indecision just paralyzed them. And when you look at it like this, it is just crystal clear. While Yahoo was drifting around, its new competitors had this laser-sharp focus. Google was search, period. Facebook was social. Amazon was retail. They knew exactly who they were and what they were doing, while Yahoo was still trying to be everything to everyone. So, this lack of focus, it led directly to maybe the most stunning part of this whole story, the billion-dollar mistakes. We're about to look at two decisions that, if they had gone the other way, would have completely changed the history of the internet as we know it. This timeline just says it all. At the absolute peak of their power, Yahoo had the chance to buy a little startup called Google. A few years after that, they had the opportunity to buy a young social network called Facebook. In both cases, they blinked and they walked away. The company's entire fate was basically sealed in those moments. So you have to ask, why? Why did they walk away? Well, it all came down to hesitation. They haggled over the price, and more importantly, a total lack of strategic conviction. They didn't really get what was being offered to them because they had no clear vision for themselves. I mean, why would you buy the world's best search engine if you're not even sure you're a search company? Just take a second and think about that. Imagine owning Google and Facebook. That's the scale of what we're talking about here. It wasn't just a bad business deal. It was a mistake of almost historic proportions. So, with these giant mistakes piling up on the outside, what was going on inside the company? Well, it was like a ship without a captain, and this constant leadership instability is really what sealed the deal on Yahoo's fate. Basically, leadership instability is just a fancy way of saying there was a revolving door in the CEO's office, and you just can't build anything that's meant to last if the person setting the vision keeps changing every couple of years. It's impossible. And that created this just devastating ripple effect. You get multiple CEOs, which means you get constantly shifting strategies. One leader comes in and says, we're doing this, and 2 years later, a new leader comes in and says, no, we're doing that. No vision was ever actually seen through, and eventually, the company just lost its competitive edge. For good. So what do we learn from this incredible rise and fall? Let's try to boil this whole story down into 4 really important takeaways from the decline of this fallen titan. All right, first, focus is everything. If you try to do it all, you end up doing nothing particularly well. Second, you have to be decisive. Hesitating on those big opportunities can literally cost you your future. Third, leadership has to be consistent. You can't execute a plan if the plan keeps changing. And finally, you have to keep innovating. Your past success means absolutely nothing tomorrow. And so, this is where the story ends, really. The core business, the part of Yahoo that was once the center of the internet universe, was sold off to Verizon. It was truly the end of an era. And this quote just sums it all up perfectly.
Yahoo had the money, they had the talent, they had the brand recognition, they had everything you would think they needed to win. They didn't lose because they were weak, they lost because they had no idea where they were going.
It's such a powerful lesson, and it should make all of us think. If a giant with every single advantage can fall apart simply because it lost its way, who's next?